Okay, so we are working through this question here. We've finished part A, and now we're going on to part B, which is asking us to state the value of the discriminant. Okay, so before I write down what my discriminant is, let's just remind ourselves of the question before us, the function. The function is negative 2x squared plus 2x plus 5. I know that my discriminant is equal to b squared minus 4ac. Therefore, I can write in that b is going to be 2, so it's going to be 2 squared minus 4. A is going to be negative 2, and then c will be 5. And that means I'm going to get 2 squared is 4, minus, now I've got two negatives, so it's going to be plus. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 5 is 40. It's going to be 44. Let's see how many marks this thing is worth. It's only worth 1 mark, so that means I don't have to do anything else. That's just going to be my final answer there. So my discriminant is equal to 44. I don't have to explain what it means or anything like that. Of course, we know that because our discriminant is greater than 0, we have 2 solutions, but we don't have to write anything like that. It's just 1 mark. It simply asked us to state the value of the discriminant. We've done that. So let's now move on to C, which is asking us to solve for x, f of x equals 0. So before we launch into this, let's again just write down what we actually have to do here. So I have negative 2x squared plus 2x plus 5 is equal to 0. And I need to find where it's touching the x-intercepts. And I know that when I have something like this, the easiest way to go about this is just to use my quadratic formula. And there's actually a reason why this is easy in this case. So I can say x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of, now I know it's the square root of my discriminant, and I've already found my discriminant, so that's why I mean this time it's going to be easy for us. And then it's going to be 2 times a, so 2 times a, and a here is going to be negative 2. Okay, so that means what I'm going to end up with is b is 2, so it's going to be negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 44 over 2 times negative 2, so it's going to be negative 4 down here. Once I've done that, what am I going to do next? Well, I know that the square root of 44, that's the same thing as 4 times 11, in which case I could go the square root of 4 is 2, and just be left with that. Now, it's important that I do that now, because it's quite clear that I can take 2 out of this. So that means what I'm going to be left with now is, and I can take a negative out as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out negative 2. So if I was to do that, I would be taking out negative 2 here, which is going to leave me with 1 plus or minus the square root of 11. Then I've got 9 minus 4 down here. Beautiful. And that means what I'm going to be left with is, well, this 2 there, 1 plus or minus the square root. Well, that's an ugly square root. Let's try that again. Square root of 2. And remember, that negative went away, so that now is my answer. Is that all I need to do? Solve for x, f of x is equal to 0. Yep, 1 plus or minus the square root of 11 on 2. That would be my answer. It's worth 2 marks. So make sure that you've got all those steps there. Make sure you're always expressing your answer as simply as possible. So I think some of us might they might have left their answer like that instead of taking out that negative 2 and then doing some cancelling. So just make sure you're doing that. Okay, the last thing we have to do here for part D, what does it say? It says solve for x, f of x is greater than 0. So remember, whenever you're dealing with inequalities and quadratics, it's really important that you just sketch what you're dealing with here. So what I would do here is I would just draw this, I would draw this. I know it's going to look something like this. This right here is my turning point, which we know is a half and 11 on 2. It was 11 on 2, wasn't it? Yes. And then we know this right here. Now, if I look up at this here, this is going to be 1 minus the square root of 11 on 2 and 0. And then on the other side, this is going to be 1 plus the square root of 11 on 2 and 0. Just like that. Perfect. So those are my 2 points. Now I'm trying to figure out where f of x is greater than 0. So another way of saying that is just where is it above my x-axis? And obviously it's above my x-axis or here. So this is where it's greater than it. So solve for x. So for what values of x is my function above the x-axis? What I would say is 1 minus the square root of 11 over 2 is less than, x is less than 1 plus the square root of 11 over 2. It's important that you don't put equals to as well, because it's only where it's greater than it, not also equal to. And another way of saying this that people might prefer is saying that x is an element of, not including, but between 1 minus the square root of 11 on 2 to 1 plus the square root of 11 on 2. So either of those would be the correct way of saying that, just different notation. But that's how you would answer this question right here. Hopefully you found this helpful. So remember, when you're dealing with inequalities and quadratics, always very helpful to give it a sketch. It's worth 2 marks. So that means more likely that if you like messed up, say, the brackets, or if you did put something like that, we might be able to give you a mark like that or something like that. But at the end of the day, just make sure you answer correctly. And yeah, that's all I've got to say about this. So hopefully you found the second part of this video on this question helpful. And yeah, that's it. I'll see you in the next one.